There's no sports league unlike it anywhere in the world, where cartoons and football come together. This is the United States Cartoon Football League, celebrating its 40th anniversary.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the modern Stone Age family. From the town of Bedrock, they're a page right out of history. Let's ride with the family down the street, through the courtesy of friends to beat. When you're with the Flintstones, have a yabba-dabba-doo time, a dabba-doo time, we'll have a gay old time. Meet George Jetson. His boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Jane, his wife.
Greetings, cartoon and football fans, and especially fans of classic Hanna-Barbera. This is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network, filling in this week for Bob Wilson, as he has a very special family event he's attending to. While we are still waiting for the second half of the Masters of the Universe Revelation series to be announced, we're doing another episode runoff. For this contest, we're pitting two of Hanna-Barbera's most beloved and memorable franchises, the Flintstones and the Jetsons, in a 12-week contest. As always, football scoring will be used, and we are choosing the episodes randomly by how they are in our library of shows in alphabetical order. However, we will show the info on screen for these episodes in order of appearance. As we begin round 3, the Flintstones took the lead in round 2 and is leading the Jetsons 13-10. After a brief pause, I will rate and review two of my personal favorite episodes from both shows: the Bowling Ballet from the Flintstones and Elroy's Pal from the Jetsons.
Montag, lieben, glauben, globen.
All right. I got something to say. Yeah. It's better to burn out. Yeah. Than fade away. All right. Gonna start a fire.
Welcome back. Here's my review for this week's entry of the Flintstones, the Bowling Ballet, Season 3, Episode 64. First, a personal note. I was a semi-pro bowler in my day, and I can relate to Fred's problem with not being able to bowl a decent game in this episode. The episode begins with Wilma having a hard time getting Fred out of bed. When he does awake, he goes out the window. Then when he is at work, he smashes a truck with a boulder as his foreman tells him that it's the second truck he's wrecked within a week. Then when it's time for lunch, Fred gets in his car to meet Barney at a bowling alley to practice for a big tournament that's coming up. Fred is awkward in his skill and coordination that includes him falling down a flight of stairs to dropping a bowling ball on his foot. By the end of the session, Fred realizes that he can't seem to bowl anymore, which puts him in a terrible frame of mind. When he returns to work late, Mr. Slate calls Fred over to inform him about him being late, but Mr. Slate forgives him for it on account of Fred's practices for the big game. Then a co-worker tells Fred that all of his co-workers are literally betting the farm on Fred's performance in that tournament. Then Mr. Slate gets mad and tells Fred to get back to work. Before Fred returns home, Wilma notices a fly in the house for which she's trying to get rid of. Betty also tries to get rid of the fly, and when Fred walks through the front door, she hits him over the head with a newspaper. Fred falls down in front of Wilma, and he doesn't know why his head hurts. He was that upset. So much so, he even gives up on dinner, as a parrot faints upon hearing Fred saying that he's not hungry. Fred sits in an easy chair, grouchy, and wouldn't tell Wilma why. She gives up on trying to cheer him up and turns on the TV. A commercial for the Bedrock Dance Studio comes on screen, for which the announcer explains how dancing the ballet can help with rhythm and coordination with other activities, including bowling. This perks Fred up and heads to the studio to learn the ballet immediately. Then Fred takes off from work all week so he can continue to practice the ballet at home. Wilma tells Betty about it, and they don't quite understand why Fred's doing this. Then Wilma also tells Betty that Fred had been out all night every night that week as well, and concludes that he's seeing another woman. Betty asks Barney to investigate exactly what Fred's doing away from the house. Then he informs Betty that Fred is dancing the ballet with 10 other women, which at that moment confirms Wilma's suspicion. She surprises him at the dance studio, angry at the notion that he's been dancing with other women. Jealous much, Wilma? Then Fred explains to her why he was there, for which Wilma didn't buy it. She told him that she would be there at the bowling match, and if he doesn't do good, all hell would break loose. Then at the bowling match, Fred's first ball goes into the gutter to the delight of the opposing team. When Fred tells Barney that the ballet didn't help, Barney came up with the idea for Fred to bowl ballet style. And when Fred does, he bowls nothing but strikes. The opposing team couldn't believe how they got beaten, and it satisfies Wilma that Fred had told her the truth. After a brief pause, I will review Elroy's Pal from the Jetsons. Welcome back. Now for this week's entry of The Jetsons, Elroy's Pal, Season 1, Episode 13. We all have at one point or another in our lives where we worship some kind of hero. Whether it's a fictional character like Superman or an athlete like Tom Brady or other such hero-worthy people or characters. The episode begins in which Elroy is watching his favorite TV show, Nimbus the Great, for which he idolizes. The show is sponsored by a cereal called Moonies. I'm not sure what Moonies was modeled after. When George gets home, he's chased around by a flying version of Nimbus the Great. Elroy tells George about Nimbus the Great and tries to get George to watch another episode with him. Jane tries to get Elroy to the dinner table and gets George instead and drops him, missing the chair altogether. At dinner, Elroy suggests having Moonies. Jane tells Elroy to remove his space helmet, for which he doesn't. Then the visual phone rings as a friend of Elroy's is calling. His friend tells Elroy about a contest in which the winner will receive a personal visit by Nimbus the Great himself. Elroy missed dinner and asked George to help him out by writing an essay why he likes Moonies. George doesn't help Elroy, so he goes to Henry, the superintendent, for help. Henry isn't familiar with the product, so Elroy gives Henry some to try out. Henry has a mixed reaction to it, but says that it's full of get up and go. It helped Elroy to win the contest, and Nimbus would visit him in 1 week. When George returns home, Jane and Judy tells him that Elroy won the contest, only for George to think that it's Father's Day on account he has no idea what they were talking about initially. When the day of Nimbus's arrival comes, Jane receives a futuristic type telegram addressed to Elroy from the show sponsor to inform Elroy that Nimbus the Great would not be able to come. The sponsor in turn will give Elroy 200 boxes of cereal. Jane informs George of what has transpired, and George got mad and went to the studio where the show comes from. George goes to the TV station, then he enters a dressing room of the man who plays Nimbus the Great, a short, balding man with a big nose. He's seated in a chair with his feet soaking in a small tub of water, wrapped in a blanket, shivering and sneezing. George saw this and wasn't sure if he got the right person. The man explains that everyone looks taller on TV. George then tells the man about letting Elroy down. At first, the man tries to explain that he has a cold, and if he tried to see Elroy, the cold could get worse and he'd be out of action for weeks. Then the man said that George could take his place and even tells him how to go about it. The man also explains that he's the 5th person to play Nimbus in the last 2 years. George refuses at first to go along with it and was going to tell the sponsor about Nimbus's disappointing children. When the man heard George's threat, he does go to see Elroy. As George left the TV station, George's conscience got the better of him, and when he got back to the TV station to get a Nimbus costume, he noticed that the real Nimbus had left. When the real Nimbus goes to Elroy's apartment, Jane also marveled at the fact that Nimbus is a little guy. Elroy was glad to see Nimbus at first, but by the end of the visit, he actually seemed disappointed. Nimbus sneezed himself out of the apartment. Jane tells Elroy that Nimbus wasn't going to show up until George stepped in. George returns minutes later as Nimbus and does his best to pull off the stunt. George goes out of the door, breaking it in the process. But Elroy was very pleased with what George did for him and said that George is his real hero. The episode ends with George and Elroy going to watch another episode of Nimbus the Great. After a brief pause, I will return for the scores and wrap up.
breakfast mess. Yeah, 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 yeah. Let's play Twister, let's play Risk. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll see you in heaven if you make.
Welcome back. Now for the scores for this week. Both shows have earned the title of USCFL All-Time Favorite. A USCFL All-Time Favorite is any episode from any show in our library that is the best of the best and loved by people of all ages. For the Bowling Ballet from the Flintstones is a great exhibition in overcoming a problem and conquering it. Winning a big bowling tournament did it for Fred. This episode gets a perfect 8. For Elroy's pal from the Jetsons, Elroy and George both learn a valuable lesson about hero worship. It's okay to like or love a fictional hero, a real athlete or actor, but a child's real hero is their mother or father. This episode also gets a perfect 8. After 3 rounds, the Flintstones still has the lead 21-18 over the Jetsons. We invite you to leave a comment and your own scores for these episode runoffs. Bob will return next Saturday for round 4 of this contest. Until next time, this is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network wishing you peace. Take care and stay safe.